Okay. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm Lou Kerner. I'm a partner at Flight Ventures, where I invest in tech companies founded by Israelis wherever they live. I'm also a crypto enthusiast, investor, advisor. And for those who don't know, Israel is crushing it in crypto. And as excited as I am about the incredible wealth that's going to be generated from crypto, and by that I mean blockchain, cryptocurrency, and decentralization. Undoubtedly, for anybody who's living crypto like I'm living crypto, the much bigger opportunity is the incredible impact for social good that crypto is going to have. And as a result, I'm incredibly excited about today's conference call to have really kind of four thought leaders in leveraging blockchain and the other crypto technologies to make the world a better place. And so we have Chris Fabian from the UNICEF Innovation Unit, and Connelly from IXO, Francisco Benedito from CLIMATECOIN, and Calvin Bradley from BlockchainForChange, and they're all going to share their views about kind of their overview on how crypto is going to impact social good, and then they're each going to talk about kind of their individual initiative. And then we should have about 15 minutes afterwards for curated questions from the audience. And if you're in the audience, you can type in your questions at any time, in the question tab on the right by just typing them in. And so it should be a great call. All of the speakers are going to have slides. You can download the slides from GoToWebinar as well. And with that, I would like to turn over the call to Ann Connelly from IXO Foundation. Ann?
Thanks very much. All right, let me pull up my slides here. So I wanted to kick off the presentation today with a bit of a funny photo. So this is me in front of my very first office. So when I graduated from my MBA, I went to work with international aid organization Doctors Without Borders, and this is my office in Central African Republic, in what is probably one of the most remote places I will ever be in my whole life. We had no internet, no cell phones, no water, no electricity, just had that sat phone that you can see outside. And what I kind of wanted to get across with this picture is that a lot of the work in social good is a lot harder to actually implement on the ground than most people think. But there's a lot of great work that's happening out there. And I've dedicated my life to this whole sector and sustainable development and trying to find solutions that can help some of the most disadvantaged people in the world. I think what's changed, though, between my much younger self and myself now is really my mindset and how I go about solving the same problems that I've been trying to solve since I worked in this office. When you look at the sustainable development sector, a lot of the organizations are thinking in a very linear pattern, and so looking for 10% gains on the progress that they had made the year before. And that's good, and you can treat a lot of the symptoms of the problems that are out there with this type of mindset. But if you really want to actually see these problems disappear, you need to come from them with a bit of an exponential mindset instead. So ideas that may at first seem a little bit crazy, and they build very slowly, but then when they reach their peak, they're actually taking off significantly. And that's where you start to see these kind of 10 times gains instead of 10%. And this is really the mindset that I now use when looking at sustainable development problems. It's the same mindset that we're using at the organization where I now work, the IXO Foundation. So before I jump into that, I wanted to just level the playing field a little bit here and bring everybody up to speed on the sustainable development space. So in the past, organizations would tend to work in silos. They would do whatever projects they thought were important, and they'd go about their work, but there was no real way to track the global progress against some of these critical issues that we were working to change. And so the UN has set these sustainable development goals. There's 17 different goals with their associated targets that essentially unite the entire development sector behind the most priority areas in space. And so as you can see from this diagram, there's everything from stopping hunger to creating sustainable cities to stopping climate change. Now, more than $1 trillion goes into supporting these goals every year, but that's less than half of the funding that we actually need to achieve these goals by 2030, which is when we hope to actually reach them by. Now, it's pretty clear from this that we need to be bringing more funding into the space, but we actually also need to be achieving more with the funding that we have. And at ICSO, we really believe that the key to both of these challenges is all around data. When you have good quality data, you can actually make informed decisions about the work that you're doing and improve what you're doing instead of just going in a little bit blind. Now, the problem with that is in the sustainable development space, data is scarce. There is very little high quality data that's out there. And so that's what ICSO is looking to tackle. We want to increase the amount of high quality data so organizations can actually optimize their own impact. Now, this problem is actually such a big issue that the UN itself has called for being able to do good work in the field. And so the way ICSO is tackling this problem is we're creating a blockchain-based protocol that enables any organization to create something called an impact claim. So you could claim that you taught 100 children or planted 10 square kilometers of trees, whatever it is that you're working on that's providing an impact towards these sustainable development goals. Now that claim is then verified either by an evaluator or ideally a data source of some kind. And once it's verified, you have proof of impact. This is proof that what you say you've achieved has actually happened. And this proof is really important because you can use it to access impact investments and subsidies and pay for success type funding. And so this is going to drive more funding into the space. But as you increasingly use data to create and evaluate the claims, it's actually going to drive down the cost of some of those investment schemes as well. So that's going to help with the funding aspect too. Now, the really exciting part about all of this is that the data that's created as a part of these impact claims becomes a part of a global impact ledger. So essentially an open data commons that anyone can access to use that data to optimize their own impact. So imagine funders, organizations, researchers, governments can all access the data to spot where there are gaps in care or treatment, to see what successes are happening in one area that they could apply to another. So this is where we're really seeing how we're going to have an exponential impact on the sustainable development space. Now, the ICSO protocol, I'm not going to get too deep into the technology, but essentially we leverage public permissioned, and private layers. And this enables us to maximize the functionality while protecting data privacy, because that's so important with a lot of the work that's happening in this space. And so we're using technologies like Ethereum, BigChain, and Sovereign to help us do that. Now, at the core of the protocol is a decentralized impact exchange, which is essentially a smart contract that processes the evaluation of the claim and tokenizes the data asset to give impact credits. Now, this is really exciting because these impact credits can be used to track an organization or a funder's impact over time, but can also be used to access other types of tokens like carbon credits or health credits as well. Now, the smart contract, as a part of the decentralized impact exchange, is powered by the ICSO token. And the token can also be used to incentivize priority projects. So if you had, say, a project that you knew had a really high impact, and you wanted more people to do it, you could label that as a priority project, and then anyone who completes it would get an ICSO token minted as a reward. So it's a very exciting mechanism here. Now, we are absolutely thrilled to have been working with two of our partners, Innovation Edge and UNICEF, on a real-world proof of concept called Amply. Now, in South Africa, where our company is based, preschool is not free for children, and the vast majority of families just can't afford it. It's too expensive. Now, luckily, there's government subsidies that serve over 800,000 kids every year, but in order for teachers to actually access that funding, they have to go through a really ridiculous paper-based system where they're tracking attendance on paper and taking the paper into the government and waiting in line, and it's just an extremely inefficient process. So together we built out an application called Amply that's built on the ICSO protocol. And essentially it's just a very basic mobile interface that teachers can use to track their attendance. Now, every time a positive attendance is reported, an impact claim is created, and the proof of impact can be used for the teachers to access these government subsidies. So we've been working on this for more than a year now, and we're in 72 schools across the country with more than 45,000 attendance records taken. So it's a really exciting project, and it's scaling up now, looking at more schools, but also more applications across the early childhood development space. Now for ITSO, partnerships are very important to us. We know that we can't solve all of the world's problems ourselves, and so we're thrilled to be partnered with some great organizations like UNICEF, the Innovation Edge, as well as the Consensus Blockchain for Social Impact Coalition, Singularity University Ventures, and Microsoft as well. And we've got a few partners that we're going to be announcing soon that we're very excited about. So I would invite all of you to become a part of our community and join our vision. You can check out our website.
Okay, that was terrific, Ann. Thank you very much for that. Great start to the call. And now I'd like to turn it over to Francisco Benedito with ClimateCoin. And let me see, Francisco, it should now be going over to your computer. Let me see. Is it on your computer?
You got it?
You got it?
Yeah, I think you should be watching my presentation. Good afternoon.
Cool. Okay.
So, hello everyone. I'm Francisco Benedito from ClimateCoin. I'm the president of the ClimateCoin Foundation. We are a foundation based in Switzerland, in Zug, in the Crypto Valley, where Ethereum was created and where the Ethereum Foundation is based at the moment. ClimateCoin is a way to bring the possibility for everyone in the world to participate in the fight against climate change. What we want is to democratize this fight that we have to at the moment, that we have to do something about it. Is obviously, as you can see here, is a great problem. We have until 2030. We have to provide 700 billion for this cause, but because if not, there is no way back. The temperatures are going to rise, and that's going to affect two different ecosystems that are going to be, we are not going to be able to reverse. So the CO2 levels are at the highest in the 650,000 years at the moment. We had 16 of the 17 warmest years on record since this occurred, and at the moment the Arctic Sea has ranked to the lowest level in history. If you see this video that I think you may be seeing there now, it's from 1986 to the now is how is the poles are defrosting. It's amazing. If you can see whenever it arrives to 2016 is crazy. I'm gonna leave it so you can see it very well. How is this going? So basically, from ClimateCoin Foundation, what we thought, I'm investment banker for 14 years. I had my first startup when I was 16 years old. I sold it after 3 years. I made my first ticket. I finished my MBA in the Sorbonne in France, and I started working for a bank. So in my bank, it was one of the biggest, the most advanced banks in technology. So I embraced the blockchain technology in the fintech. So in that moment, I thought we should do something against this problem we have, and we should use blockchain technology to do it, because we need to bring this to everybody. Everybody can be able to participate and to do something against it. Why? Because if you think on your daily, if you can imagine that you think that you want to contribute with your daily contribution, you can only maybe you can ride a bike, you can have an electric car, you can recycle, but you cannot know really the impact you are making. You cannot measure that, and you cannot know what is your neighbor is doing with that. With ClimateCoin, you will be participating, and I'll show you now, in a big investment vehicle that is trying to solve this issue. If you see the pollution, and this is a China image, where you can see, well, you cannot see anything because everything is with the pollution. You cannot see anything there, and it's not funny because it's per year with the pollution is 9,000 people dead. So this is earthquakes. There is a problem with El Nino and with different situations that we are having at the moment. What is happening in the market at the moment, and what is happening against climate change? That the NGOs and the government actions are not enough. I mean, they have resources, but normally they don't put the resources in the right places. They use carbon credits. They make investment in different projects, but that projects normally are not that effective against the problem we have. So, and that then we have the individual actions, as I told you, that they are not that effective because we don't know how much impact. We cannot put them all together and measure them. So the market we are going to have for the climate change, estimated by OCDE, is 100 trillion. As I told you, we had to put 700 billion to 2030. Okay, we are talking about 23 trillion US dollars in opportunities until 2030. As I told you, the World Bank is putting what, 16 billion US dollars a year to finance and to directly include projects for financing projects. So ClimateCoin, as I told you, what we want to do is we are creating this cryptocurrency that anybody can participate against the climate change, and at the same time they get profits out of it. And I explain you how it works. ClimateCoin will give a double source of solution. Everybody can participate and you get profits out of that, because with that money we raise with the funding we get, we are going to create a sustainable vehicle to invest in different projects, like specific projects that are very disruptive. They must be like, and I put you an example. For example, there is this company that in very arid areas that you cannot grow anything, is planting this. There is this plant that captures biokerosene for the planes that are one of the most contaminated sources. At the same time, they use the plant also for feeding pets and for feeding plants organically. And basically what we are going to do is we participate in this company. The investment decisions are taken by an investment committee with experts from the venture capital, from the business management, from the environmental field, that come from our advisors, from our partners that we have. Already we have a partnership with 2 impact investing important companies. And in our advisory, we have like the ex-CEO from Repsol Gas, we have the CSO from Schneider Electric, we have big people from the impact investing, from the environmental field, we have UN representatives, United Nations representatives. So basically, with the funding, we are creating this vehicle that is going to do real impact against climate change. And what the token holder gets out of our token is a principle is that you are getting a token with a real tangible assets behind. And at the same time, you get a reward. We have a reward program. So if you hold your token during 6 months, after 6 months in our platform, you sign up for our platform and you contribute with your opinions, with your voting right. I mean, you vote for if you think that the projects we are participating, we are investing on are good or not. And then you get part of the profits we get out of these companies as a dividend we get, or as a selling of our stake after some years, whenever we think these projects are already grow enough. Also, there is a depletion program. So any investment we make in the companies, we put 2% of that investment in market. So we take climate coins out of market. So there is less offer, the same demand, so the price should go up. How can we do it? As I told you, we have this investment committee, okay, that has to select the projects we invest on, okay. These projects that come to us, it comes from own research, it comes from UN, because we have a special agreement with UN RED and with UN FCCC. It comes from our partners, it comes from our advisors, and from any project that our token holders can provide, and we can check if it's interesting for us. The investment committee, as I told you, is from different specialists, and we select 1,000 projects. From there, we take 100 out, and afterwards, our idea is to invest in 20 per year from early stage and later stage companies, not only startups, only 30%. The target market for our product, for our token, is an individual, corporations from their CSR plans, because they need to invest in social causes, like through the CSR plans, investment in environmental, because at the moment they normally invest in charity or any other plans that they don't get profits out of that. If they invest through our token, they get profits because they get the appreciation of the token and the reward program I told you. Also VC funds that can partner with us, that can co-invest with us, and governmental institutions or internal organizations. The advantages I told you is that we are tangible assets, we have these programs. So we have security, professionalism, and transparency. How are we getting this transparency? We are partnering already with 2,050 live investments. We have the VR, virtual reality system, that we are gonna tape any investment we do. So our projects, you are gonna be able to watch the projects in our webpage. So imagine that we invest in planting trees in any part of the world. You are gonna have a 3D tape of that project that you can check, and you can see, okay, I'm investing in this and I'm seeing the return. Where is this investing? This is not people that says they are investing in projects and they don't show me where they put it. And so the business model, as I told you, we are investing part of our money, 30% mostly in early stage investments, startups, disruptive startups, and 70% in later stage. Basically, what we want to do is not only fund these companies, we want to help them grow. Because sometimes the companies, what we find is that they are, imagine, they are companies that these scientists or these technological people that they think this great idea, but they don't have they don't know how to manage a company. We are business experts. I'm investment banker for 14 years, and all my team, there is people from business management, and there is some more people that we are gonna hire before the end of the ICO from the venture capital field. And there are people from the advisory team that are joining our team after the ICO. And later stage companies that where the average holding period is lower, because they are with more turnover every year, but they have maybe possibilities of giving our point, sitting on the board, to get better management and get more profit out of them. And that products are very good, and we need to make them grow.
Hey, Francisco, just as we're obviously need time for the other guys, is there anything that you want to finish on, and we can come back to questions at the end? Of course.
Okay, so this is the type of sectors we are going to invest. Our token sale is already started in 23rd October, sorry. We are launching the ICO December 1st until the end of our webpage. There is the pre-sale, so there's a white list that you can sign up there, and there is also the possibility from 100 ethers in the pre-sale get a 30% discount. If you get in the token sale from the December 1st, you will get a 25% discount until we arrive to some amounts. So that's basically ClimateCoin. This is we have verification partners, as you can see here. And okay, I'm running out of time, so if you get some more questions.
Yeah, we'll come back to you in questions, but thanks a lot for that. And then next, we're going to hear from Calvin Bradley with BlockchainForChange. So Calvin, we should be onto your computer now. Let's see, there we go. Perfect. Calvin, you want to unmute your phone? Calvin, let's. We're not hearing you if you're talking. Gonna try one moment and see if you can get your audio working. Okay, Calvin, why don't we?
Hi, Louis. Sorry about that. Yeah,
there you go. Okay.
First, can you see my screen still?
Yeah. So the presentation is small. You can make. There you go. Okay, we can hear you. We can see you. Go for it.
Perfect. Oh.
Okay, Calvin. Okay. I think we lost Calvin. Hopefully he will come back. So we were gonna, in the interim, we're gonna turn it over to Christopher Fabian with UNICEF. So Christopher, turning over the screen to you.
Hi. Let's see if we can share. I'm just trying to.
Okay.
Now. 1 second to pop up my content.
Have you got your content up?
No, it does not look like it's coming up, but hold on. Sorry about that. Give me just 30 seconds while I try to get that loaded.
Okay, and I'm going to turn it back over to you for a moment and then switch it back to Christopher, seeing if that
there you go. You should have it now. Do you see it?
Okay, hold on a moment. I just switched to Ann, and now I'm going to switch it back to you. Okay, it's waiting for your screen. So Christopher, can you make it your screen now?
You should see it now.
Okay, there. Yeah, there you go. Okay, that was easy. Okay, go for it.
Nothing is easy on an iPad. Great, thanks so much. So just in 10 minutes, I wanted to quickly give an overview of the work that UNICEF has been exploring in the space of blockchain and distributed ledger. Can you see the second slide now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So to give a sense of sort of the size of the organization that we're talking about, UNICEF is a $5.5 billion a year organization with offices in about 190 countries around the world. And it's an organization which has historically created market and shaped market around things like vaccine purchasing, working with pharmaceutical companies, as well as a host of other kind of spaces for social services and education and health and in child protection. And because it's such a big organization, because it has this ability to do a normative and market shaping kind of activity in new areas of exploration, we also have a small innovation team within the organization which looks at technologies that are coming up. So within the kind of mandate of a $5.5 billion organization, we've got a team of people who come from the spaces of technology, of private sector, of design, and who sort of look at these spaces where we see emerging technologies that are in the market capitalization area of about $100 billion plus. So those are things like drones and UAVs, blockchain, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, and where those technologies find a set of needs that could probably serve a billion people. And I'll give an example of a few of those needs. We know that by 2050, you're going to have about 70% of people living in cities. And when you have that type of huge urbanization, you have all the problems that we've heard about in some of the two previous speakers. You have those problems compounded in these kind of densely packed cubic volumes of humans. So the people who are most disconnected may be living next to the people who have the most opportunity. But even though there isn't a great physical distance between them, there is a great distance in terms of their ability to have shared opportunity or shared ability to choose their futures. We also know that there are people on the move today in numbers that were inconceivable 20 years ago. Right now you have about 55 million children who are not living in their homes because of war or violence. Those are 55 million kids who don't have an identity, who don't have a sovereign, often don't have an identity, don't have a link to a sovereign set of services, to health ministries or education ministries, and they're kids who will not be able to sort of fully actualize or create a future for themselves if they're not linked to the systems we know are so important for a child, particularly identity. And we also know that we're living in a world where the changes coming so quickly affect people who are more vulnerable, people who have worse jobs, or people who have less access to capital or to economic safety nets, affect them more than those who have more economic or fiscal power. So as we see job loss, we don't see that distributed evenly across the world, but we see it really finding a kind of inequitable footing in the world to come. And we as UNICEF try to address these issues, and we try to address them by exploring new technologies and how we can apply them to this sort of grim future. As we've looked at distributed ledger technologies over the last year and a half, 2 years, we've come up with 3 major areas where, as an organization, we think that we can get around some of the hype, which is everywhere in this space, and actually see practical instantiations of blockchains, and in particular public blockchains, in our work. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes to describe these 3 areas of exploration, and to say that while we don't have the answers, we do have a lot of questions. We were very excited about 3 months ago to set up the first multi-sig Ethereum contract in the UN. And this was set up because we had some interest from external parties in making donations to our venture fund in Ether. So the way that the contract was set up is that it would accept donations, and you would have transparency, of course, because it's on a public blockchain, to action. And that was, for us, very exciting, because the way that a big public institution, UNICEF is an international organization under the UN Charter, the way that these institutions work is not always super transparent and accountable. But we thought that this would help us provoke and to learn and to see hands-on what something like a smart contract could do. And as you can see here, we have 3 people on our team who are able to activate the Ether inside of that contract, and you can go and look and see what's happened with it. We haven't done a lot with the contract since we set it up, but we do see this as a way that points to future transparency in our work. And if you can imagine an investor or a donor or somebody interested in social impact bonds being able to track the money that they put into an organization and actually see it have some impact, as Anne talked about, that becomes a very powerful role for an organization like UNICEF. And as we will not any longer need to be the world's biggest purchaser of pencils, those types of activities aren't going to be under the mandate of a big international organization. We can at least give our imprimatur and give our stamp to activities that help advance humanity. The second big area that we've seen work in blockchain be, sort of in public blockchains be potentially useful to us, is in our internal efficiencies. So UNICEF is one of the world's leading producers of PDFs, and that's very exciting if you like things like the picture in the background of this slide. I have a blurred out slide here that's sort of a small sketch of how one of our internal contracts works, and as you can see, that is both something with many actors, many arrows, and a lot of complexity. We asked 2 weeks ago a bunch of Russian world, Russian-speaking crypto folks to come together in Kazakhstan and to try to take a diagram like that and turn it into something that could be described in a smart contract. And we were really excited that our Kazakhstan office was the first of those 190 offices to be able to bring together the crypto community and start to describe in simple technical modes very difficult and complicated bureaucratic processes. So we'll be having more of these hackathons where we try to put sort of specific internal issues out there and try to create these artifacts that can be described, replicated, and audited in a public way. And the third thing that we see as a real potential for blockchain technology is that space of identity. And this is not identity in the sense of necessarily storing somebody's identity publicly, but is the identity that's created from transactions on a public blockchain. The identity cards that a refugee uses are obviously on paper, which is a problem, and there are a ton of initiatives that are looking at creating digital identity. What we're very interested in as an organization is how we can use the sort of digital exhaust that's created through transactions to ensure that people have enough of a KYC or enough of an identity built up through the transactions that they engage with, that we could then offer them sort of some more formal identity or more formal link to a financial system as they build up their transactions on a public blockchain. So those are the 3 areas that we've really been looking at, and I'll just take the last 2 minutes to describe our modalities of funding. We do have a small venture capital fund, which we've used to fund projects and companies like Amply and Nine Needs, the company behind that. This fund provides $50,000 to $100,000 of kind of startup capital. It's equity free, but we only invest in open source projects, so our equity is the IP stack that's created, and that's our return to our LPs. We have clusters of projects that we're investing in, and those clusters sort of circle around the technologies that we think are making the biggest potential impact against some of these really intractable problems. We will be having it's open now, we have a call for blockchain related companies, and these are companies that have to be registered in the countries that UNICEF has program offices. There's a list of this all on the website that's at the bottom of this slide, UNICEFInnovationFund.org, and what we're really looking for are practical examples that demystify and de-hype what we believe is a very simple technology in many ways that's being talked about in a variety of ways that can be applied to some of the world's most complex problems. Thank you.
That was really interesting stuff, Chris. A lot of great work being done. So thanks, and let's see if we can send it back to Calvin.
Back here. Thank you, Lou.
There you go. So waiting for your computer.
Yeah, great.
The thing is, we can edit this out in the replay. So you having trouble taking over the screen?
Yeah, I pressed it. It hasn't given me the option to go again, but I can go full screen. Is it up there yet?
No. I'll do that one more time. I'll pass it back to Anne for a moment, and then I will pass it back to you and see. Let's see one more time. So it says that it's waiting for your screen. Do you have an option to take it?
No, it hasn't come up yet.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, then why don't you just go through the audio? We'll be able to make the slides available, for the replay, and let's just do the best, I guess, if we can turn it up. Oh, there we go.
Awesome.
Okay.
Winning.
Perfect.
Great. Awesome. So I just wanted to start off and thank the rest of the panelists for those incredible, sharing those incredible initiatives, especially Anne. I'm South African, and initiatives like that are absolutely what the country can use, and I implore you and your colleagues for taking on such a task. And then finally, Lou sent out an email saying he knows that these are all exciting projects that we have underway, but could we just share more about the social impact side of blockchain and crypto? So I'm incredibly happy to be here and share some of the incredible experiences and organizations that we've met with along the way. And I'm usually excited for these kind of panels for two reasons. One, being a millennial representation, I think this is a technology that definitely speaks to our generation. It's kind of our .com or our microprocessor, and I think it also speaks to the social accountability that we expect in the generation that we live in today. And the second reason is to be a representation of the collective experiences of the team and partnerships that BlockchainForChange has been able to connect with since we began. So I'm Calvin Bradley, the co-founder of BlockchainForChange, and as you can see from our screen, we've built a blockchain smart ID and alternative financial services platform. So our ID platform, Fumi, is connected to the blockchain, preloaded on phones which are subsidized by the government for people who qualify for government benefits. So the real interesting part of this is when that origination takes place, most of the information that's required in that process allows us to coordinate those same users to other benefits that they might qualify for. So the usual question is, why blockchain? And for obvious reasons, as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the main ones is the trust and accountability, obviously the transparency. It's been mentioned before, the interoperability that it can have. For me, it's really the nexus of this philosophical and tech breakthrough that we're experiencing. I think for the very first time, we're able to see technology really take a leap and have a philosophical overview that goes along with it. And I think that's really what inspires people for the capabilities of blockchain, and it's most certainly been part of our journey as a company and coming to where we are today. So for us, what blockchain really comes down to is funneling into that digital identity. And as mentioned before, you really have to start to build that transactional base, that digital footprint. And with this kind of technology, we really can change that digital footprint into a digital thumbprint for a human. And with that, allow them to connect with traditional services, whether it be government aid, banking, just access to your ID card, your bus ticket, a number of things that we can think about and innovate for. And I think the most exciting of all is a sovereign ID as we look towards a digital future. So where these being looked at, the SDG goals is obviously a major place, and BlockchainForChange was incredibly proud to be represented at that inaugural Blockchain for Impact event, which was hosted at the United Nations with the Public Foundation, and they were able to connect with the World Food Fund, the World Bank, the United Nations, all of which are looking into how this technology plays a role in our future. And again, it's just incredibly exciting to be part of such a exciting time. So, what we are particularly looking at is the issue of financial inclusion, and that falls under poverty alleviation and obviously economic growth. And being community orientated, we wanted to focus in on New York City, and our belief is that technologies usually arise from out of necessity, and that's why we've seen such huge tech booms in places like Tel Aviv and New Zealand, as well as Estonia, as these countries start to innovate and solidify their role in the digital economy. So in the US, there's roughly about 9 million unbanked US citizens, $140 billion spent on SNAP and EITC, and what's not on here is that out of that, there's about $3 billion that goes missing to fraud or uncollected services. So there's a major gap in the market, and with this kind of flow of funds, it's incredibly important for us to, one, protect the integrity of the people that are receiving them, and then make sure that they're able to interact with them in the way that they deserve. So as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, a big part of our ID program is understanding that digital ID or that information of a person, and then understand how best to coordinate them with other services. Another part I think that we can't forget in this space is that there's still a human element. I challenge anyone that there's any true decentralized system, and there's definitely still a need for us to look at how these technologies interact with a human design, so that people are able to use them in functional ways, able to use them on phones without too much complication. And that takes people on the ground that understand the human elements, that understand the gaps in society that need to be filled. And it's that group cohesion and group thought that come together and build something special which really impacts people's lives. So just to end off, we're busy doing a token sale. We're incredibly proud of the partnerships that we've aligned with and the people that have got involved to drive this forward, and we're incredibly excited to impact change in the world through digital identity. So thank you very much for allowing us to have the time to share that today, Lou.
Okay, that was great, Calvin. Thank you for that. And apparently the question box isn't working. There's a little bit of feedback going on, but so I'll start asking some questions, and any of the other panelists can also chime in. But if those of you that are doing an ICO, so and we can start with you. what are the challenges that you've seen when you're going out and you're talking to people about, investing in a coin instead of kind of traditional, not-for-profit fundraising? Kind of what are the challenges and how are you addressing those? And Ann, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I think like one of the challenges that I've seen in speaking with people is that they assume right off the bat that we're a charity and that we're looking for donations, and that they're never going to see their money again, and they're okay with that. And I think what we want to do is really challenge everybody's perception of what sustainable development impact funding looks like, and that doesn't have to be a donation style model. And so for us, we really believe that this whole ICO or token generation fundraising model enables people to do the good that they want in the world, but not have to clash with this idea that you have to do it for free or give up other things that you might have wanted. And so for us, it's really about trying to communicate that we're just as good an investment as any other blockchain company or better, as a result of the quality that we have and the partnerships that we have. But as a bonus, you're getting all of the sustainable development impact as well. Or I guess I would say I would flip it. You get all of the sustainable development impact, and as a bonus, there's a potential financial return. And so for us, that's a message that we do want everyone to know, that we're not only changing the model of how impact is done, but we're also changing it from how it's funded as well.
And Francisco, you have anything to add to that?
I agree with Anne. And at the same time, in my case, climate change, there are some people, I think that lately, and you know very well, there are a lot of people that are getting very concerned about all the social causes and all the impact and all the problems we are having. And I think the tokens of our nature are growing in expectation and in more knowledge. But yeah, of course, there are some people that don't believe about climate change, and they should, because at the moment it's obvious. And but every time more people is getting known, is getting in this with this information, But yeah, I agree with Anne that sometimes they look you like a charity, or that's why we have, but we are not, obviously, and we have that programs, that reward program, and the appreciation of the token, obviously, because we have tangible assets. And at the same time, there is some people that don't believe in that, in that climate change, for example,
And Calvin, anything else to add?
No, the only thing that I would turn on their head is just saying that the ability to use a technology like this really opens the borders for reaching people that are interested in your cause, and for a global generation. I think that's incredibly powerful.
Okay, terrific. Chris, one of the things that you mentioned during your presentation was, solving the digital the identity issue. Can you talk maybe just a little bit deeper? Is that something that UNICEF is solving, or are there particular partners that you're working with who you think are doing great work in that area?
So the problem of identity is a really tough one. There are both, as I mentioned, a huge number of children who are physically on the move, but there are also a large number, it's 2 billion unbanked people who don't have identity in a variety of ways. There are a lot of different initiatives now that are trying to figure out how to create the kind of one system to rule them all for identity. And we saw the same thing in the mobile phone and SMS, SMS as information movement in the late 2000s. And we're trying to stay away from anything that sort of fetishizes the technology over the need. And as I mentioned, what we're really looking at are all these kind of alternative forms of identity in our team. How do you create an identity that's almost as good as an identity that might be a sovereign one? And how do we then use tools that are existing to do that rather than build new tools? So a lot of the space that we're looking at is in that kind of, taking machine learning and looking at transactions on public blockchains, for example. UNICEF obviously has a mission particularly to register kids who are cross-border and moving across borders because of violence or war. And we work within a much larger UN system to do that. So the processes to change that are heavy and will take a long time. But we think that we can make some initial stabs at being like, this person is pretty probably a real person, So let's get them up to the next level of identity, and maybe looking at something like the e-Estonia soft identity and looking at maybe a degraded version of that as a next step up from the most informal identities that you would get off of blockchain transactions.
Wow, really, really cool stuff. Calvin, I know, in terms of now, as you think of, what you're tokenizing now in New York City with the homeless, can you talk about kind of the others, because I think we've focused a lot, I think, on the money coming in, but now as you think about, how you're going to interact with the people on the other side, can you talk just a little bit about that, the people who are receiving the money?
Sure. So it's, as the last slide would show, we're definitely creating a marketplace, and I'll echo, the words. We don't want to create a situation where we're seeming like this is the one solution to fit all, and we're definitely looking at it as an interoperability play, as well as being blockchain agnostic. But the goal is that once people are in a marketplace, you can create a cooperative purchasing platform which decreases the cost of products and services for those individuals. So when you're looking at the context of low income, that makes a considerable difference in people's lives as they start to try to make their money go further.
Okay, cool. And Anne, you were talking about on the data side, and you kind of continued to refer to those kind of 17 areas identified by the UN. Can you talk, maybe just like pick one out and maybe give a kind of a concrete example of the data that you're aggregating there?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the projects that we're looking at doing with a kind of future partner that we'll announce soon is in and around the area of cook stoves. So in a lot of developing countries, people will use fire to cook their food and to heat their homes. And it's actually a big problem both from an environmental perspective and cutting down trees, but also from a health perspective because they're breathing in the smoke. And so there's a lot of projects all over that are working to distribute these cook stoves so that people are not using fire. Now, in order for people to appreciate the impact that they've had, they'll have evaluators go and look and see, okay, is there a stove in this house? Yes, no. And so that's sort of the limit to the information that you can get about how successful a project to distribute these stoves were. Now, what we're looking to do in the future is to have, say, an IoT stove that will transmit signals every time that it's on. And so you get this very, very rich data, not only that a stove has been delivered or a stove is in a home, but all of the hours a day that a stove is being used and exactly how many carbon credits that people can get as a result of that investment in the stoves, and very, very high resolution, high quality data that doesn't need a human to check. And so what you can do with that is impact funders and impact organizations can then track all of these carbon credits or health credits that they've accumulated as a result of the project. But then other organizations that may want to do stove distributions can say, oh, look, okay, we've got distributions have been done all across this region, there's a huge gap in this area, and we can help fill that gap. So you're starting to remove a lot of the duplication that happens in the development sector as well.
Really interesting. And Francisco, let's go back on the climate. Is obviously it's a global thing. Obviously, in the work that you're doing, are you targeting any specific countries at least to start with your initiatives?
Hi, Lou. Thank you. At the moment, we are in the COP23 in Bonn. In the basis, in the focus of all the environmental, the climate change focus at the moment in the world. We've been gold sponsors in SIF, Sustainable Innovation Forum, for 2 days. We've been with all the politics, with all the startups, and with different people from the talking about climate change. And this is a global problem, obviously, as you said. And we are a global, we want to invest globally. We have 4 projects at the moment we are looking at. As I told you, one of them is making this plant for other places that they are like using for biokerosene, but we have another project in Europe. This one, the first one was in Spain, second one is in Europe and in Switzerland. They are capturing CO2 from the air and they are capturing 80% more CO2 than any other thing in the world can do. And there are some this is are like structures with some fans that you can replicate any part of the world, even in China, that with the fog you can even see the light. So our goal is to use this technology, make them grow, and use it globally in different places. So these are two of the projects. At the same time, we are looking on coral restoration. There's a big project on coral restoration. So with that coral, you can sell also projects for carbon credits to corporations. We are also getting in that field. We made a partnership today for creating a carbon portal trading peer-to-peer from different sources, from our partners, from the companies we participate, from the UN RED, from the UNFCCC. We have different projects, and that's global. I mean, that's going to be in sources of projects from different parts of the world.
No, makes lots of sense. Great stuff. And last question, because we're down to the last couple of minutes here, and I'll just turn it over to Chris. Obviously you're looking at a lot of different projects, and obviously we have a lot of folks on the call here, and they'll be listening to the replay, who are looking to leverage these technologies, of blockchain and cryptocurrency. Just any advice that you can give them, kind of given the breadth of things that you're looking at in terms of what other things that social good folks should be looking at to solve, or other tools maybe that they should be using?
Sure, it's how I'd look at any ICO anyway, but our investments through the venture fund follow a typical VC methodology. We look for potential for real impact and growth of the company, and we look for an ability to really evaluate that quite quickly. So we invest for a year, and we look for results within that time. So I would suggest that people focus on very, very concrete spaces where their token or their experience or their process can help actually move something forward, and that can be proven, and where we can make a business case out of it. And our team is happy to work with companies to create some of those models, but there's more information available on the UNICEF Innovation Fund website as well.
Okay, well, terrific, Chris. And I'll just finish up. I'd like to thank all the speakers, Francisco, Ann, Calvin, Chris. You were all terrific. For anybody on the call, there's going to be a replay, and all of the speaker slides will be posted up on SlideShare. So if there are any slides that you want to get, they'll be posted up on SlideShare by tomorrow. And thanks everybody for dialing in and for participating.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks very much.
Bye.